my first question for you is, when you're filming a documentary like this, and you have so much footage from so many different people, how do you sort out the best parts?
Yeah, it's very, very difficult, and there's lots that you leave on the cutting room floor, although similar to what we were just discussing, there's actually no cutting room floor anymore. It's the cutting room folder of your hard drive, I guess, that you're putting everything you cut out. But no, it's very difficult. There's a lot of stuff that there's not only a lot of stuff that you get into the editing room and it's not as good as you thought it was in the moment, but there's also a lot of stuff that is great and fantastic, just as good as you thought it was, just doesn't fit with the story that you're trying to tell, just doesn't fit with the structure that you've chosen for the film. And those are the really difficult parts, because you think, wow, no one will ever see this. No, this is a great moment with a famous person talking about a really interesting thing, and I got it on film, and no one will ever see it.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be such a shame. You're like, man, if I could just shoehorn this in somewhere.
Yeah. It's a good Zen practice of letting go, and trusting that the next great moment is going to fit in the movie, in the story that you tell. It's difficult. It's difficult.
Now, what was your inspiration for focusing specifically on Richard Linklater?
Yeah. Well, I have a good friend, Jolene Pender, who runs the New Orleans Film Festival. And she and I were out drinking one night, and she told me about the festival they were going to be having in a couple of months, and that they were going to do a 20th anniversary screening of Slacker, and that Rick was going to be there for it. And I told her, it's a shame I didn't know that further in advance, because, I probably could have gotten a hold of one or two people and done a cool little testimonial video to show before the screening. And she said, oh man, that would have been amazing. And there was this long pause. She said, you think you could still do that? And I said, you mean for the festival that's in 7 weeks? She said, well, I don't know. So I said, well, okay, look, that's insane, but yes, I will try to do that. I'll try to do you a short. And I said, there's a list of 4 or 5 people that if one of them says yes in the next week, I can do you a short, because even if I just have that one person, if it's just McConaughey, if it's just Ethan Hawke, if it's just Julie Delpy, and Ethan said yes within 24 hours, so we were on, and then I had already started thinking this would make a good feature, and when I interviewed Ethan, that first interview, we spent over an hour together, really got along well, connected very quickly. Immediately, and I said at the end after the interview, he said, yeah, Michael, this is so great what you're doing for Rick. Thank you for doing this. I said, oh no, I'm enjoying that. I said, I'm thinking it might make a good feature. And he said, oh, Michael, you got to turn this into a feature. Mm-hmm. He said, everybody will talk to you. Everybody will have great stories. Everybody loves talking about Rick. You should do it. I said, yeah, I'm really thinking about it. And he said, don't think about it. Tell me that you're going to turn this into a feature. And I said, okay, Ethan Hawke, yes, I promise I will turn this into a feature. So at Ethan's prodding, that's what gave me the encouragement to go on and make it a feature. And Ethan's been a wonderful supporter and encourager ever since then.
What is your favorite Linklater film?
Something I always say about Rick is that I think it's extraordinary that 21 years into his career, now 23 years into his career, if you ask me, I think his 3 best movies are the last 3 movies he's done. I think in order, Boyhood, Before Midnight, Bernie are his 3 best movies. And that's completely extraordinary. I'm pretty sure you cannot say that about any other director who's been around for as long as Rick has. And I'm not sure there's ever been any director's point in his career where 23 years in, his 3 best movies are the 3 last ones he's made. It's just fantastic, and it really makes me excited about what the next 21 years are going to hold for Rick and what else he's going to bring us, because he has certainly hit his stride as a filmmaker. And look, I love Slacker as much as the next person. I love Dazed and Confused as much as the next person. He started out of the box with 2 great films, but I don't think they compare to what he's doing now. So it's exciting.
Tell me a little bit about the animator and why you chose the parts that you did to animate.
Sure. So the Animation House, I have to give a shout out to my producing partner and co-director, Tara Wood. Tara found, among many other things she did, one of those things is that she found the animators, Powerhouse Animation. They're from Austin, Texas. We tried to have as many of the inputs for this movie, as many collaborators as possible from Austin, because it's such a big part of the story of Rick's career. And Powerhouse had done a couple of high-profile things. They had several. They had animated the Clerks animated series that Kevin Smith did. They were the animators.
That's why it looked so familiar.
Yes. And then they do, I think they do all of the animation for Grantland.com, the website. So they're great. They're very accomplished. And everything we threw at them, they just said, yeah, let's do it, let's try it, which is not always the case when you're bringing in somebody to do animation. As you might have noticed from what you've seen already, each animation is in a different style. Most animators would look at you and say, no, we're going to create a signature style and we're going to use one style for every animation. We told these guys we want to do everyone different, and they said, oh, okay, that sounds awesome, let's do that. So they were fantastic. And choosing the parts to be animated, part of it sort of came organically as we thought, oh, that story would be great. We need to show, when Ethan talks about how, he wanted to be in that movie when he sees Dazed and Confused. And then in the animation, his animated figure actually gets up out of his seat and goes into the screen. That was a natural, But then, there were a lot of other places that we thought, that's kind of a long bit on just that person's face. Maybe we should put in some animation here for interest. There were parts that the animators came forward and said, hey, this story would be great to animate. And again, I have to say, Tara was fantastic in managing that whole process with the animators and getting all that whipped into shape to where it needed to be. Well, Rick as a filmmaker, there's so much to what makes him inspiring. Not only are his films so great, but he also is such an inspiration for so many other filmmakers, and to me as a filmmaker, he really is that sort of, captures that punk rock ethos of don't ask anybody for permission, don't wait till the time is right, don't wait till everything's perfect and you have all your skills perfectly honed. F that, just get out and do it, just get out and make something, And we start the short. The short is called A Slacker Turns 20, and we started the short with this relatively famous, in music circles at least, quote that Brian Eno has about the Velvet Underground. And he says, the first Velvet Underground record only sold about 10,000 copies, but everybody who bought it went out and formed a band. And that's kind of the way I feel about Slacker. Like, I don't know how many tickets it sold, but I can guarantee you that a large percentage of people that saw Slacker came out of that theater and said, I'm going to make a movie. Kevin Smith tells that story in the movie, which he's told many times before, about how that was his reaction. He talks about how he walked out of the movie and he said, wait, that counts as a movie? He's like, I always thought, and it was great. It wasn't that it wasn't great, but I always thought that a movie was, Jaws or Star Wars or, something with special effects and famous actors and all that. And the idea that you could just pick up your camera and just film something, and if it was sufficiently interesting, people would want to see it. That's revolutionary. So I think Rick is really a revolutionary in that way, and that's incredibly inspiring and empowering. I have something that I say, which is, as a critic, we're always, making lists. And I always say that in the last decade, I think that there have been 5 American masterpieces.
I was going to say, let's do it the high fidelity way.
Yeah, exactly.
Desert Island top 5
exactly,
in the last 10 years.
Exactly. And to me, those 5 are Boyhood from this year, Take Shelter, The Tree of Life, which, before it's all said and done, may end up being my favorite movie of all time, the Terrence Malick film, Tree of Life. The director's cut of Margaret, which is the Kenny Lonergan's follow-up to You Can Count on Me, and stars Anna Paquin and Mark Ruffalo and some other people. And then a little movie that I shouldn't say hardly anyone, that many fewer people have heard of, which is called That Evening Sun. That Evening Sun was shot in Tennessee, actually, over near Knoxville, if I recall correctly. It's based on a William Gay short story. William Gay just passed away about 1.5 years ago, was one of the great contemporary Southern short story writers. It stars Hal Holbrook, and it is, believe it or not, the first starring role of Hal Holbrook's career. This was about 5 years ago, the first starring role of his entire career. It's got an amazing cast, it's got an amazing script. It's directed by a genius of a director named Scott Teems, and it's whenever people ask me, what have I not seen what might I have missed that I would enjoy, the first thing I always say is That Evening Sun.
What is your best advice for up-and-coming filmmakers,
Sure.
people that really want to break into the industry, that's because I think that sometimes it seems so huge. I mean, myself, when I started my blog 4 years ago, I said, there's a million movie review blogs out there. Nobody's going to read this. And I just kind of stuck with it, and I think that, but sometimes it can be paralyzing, to know where to start. What would you say to people making or writing about films? Where should they start?
Yeah, it's a great question. The first thing, and a lot of the pieces of advice I give sound obvious and probably are obvious, but they're just things that people need to be reminded of, I think. The first thing is, just like we were talking about with what Rick teaches, is to do it. Don't plan on it. Don't think it through. Don't wait till you're ready to do it. Just start doing it. Johnny Mercer, a songwriter from Georgia, way back in the early part of the century, had a great saying that he said. Someone asked him how he wrote so much, and he said, "Well, you write for the trash can." And they said, "What do you mean?" He said, "The dustbin." That's what he said back then. And he said, "What do you mean you write for the dustbin?" He says, "Well, you wake up and you write something assuming that you're going to throw it in the dustbin, and you finish writing it and you throw it in the dustbin. It's not for everyone else. It's for the process. It's for your work." He said, "And then one day you write something and you start to throw it in the dustbin, and you can't quite throw it in the dustbin. And then you start rewriting that, and then you start revising that, and then that's the one to keep, and then one day that turns into the song that you show someone." So I was just speaking to a couple of budding filmmakers here at the university this morning, and I said, one of them was talking about wanting to upgrade her camera. And I said, absolutely figure out what equipment is going to work better for you, and upgrade when you can. But don't let that stop you. Make your movies now, even if no one ever sees them. Even if you're the only one who ever sees it. Write something, find your actors, shoot it, and just start doing it. Start getting those reps in, so that when you do have the right equipment and you do have the right actors and everything is ready, you're already an experienced filmmaker, even though no one has seen those movies before. That's one thing. Another thing is to find the right collaborators, find the right partners, find people that you share creative vision with, find people that will tell you what the weaknesses in your writing are. Find people that will still love you and still want you to succeed and still work with you to help you overcome those weaknesses. Find people that can be honest and also loving at the same time with you. And those people, by the way, can be your collaborators or outside people. They both sets of people can contribute to that. And then once you get to the point, I'm going to mention this because it's a little further down the line, but it's very important to me to keep saying. Once you get to the point where you are taking other people's money to make a movie, treat that money as if it were your own, and make a movie that has a shot of doing right by your investors. Make a movie that has a shot at getting your money back. Don't create this dream project of yours that's going to take $3 million to shoot that's never going to sell more than 50 or 60,000 at the box office. It's completely irresponsible, and you're burning up investors who are never going to invest in another film again because they had a bad experience the first time out because you wouldn't tell them that you were going to lose all their money. And so that's a very unromantic thing, but it's a very important thing to think. You can't only think like a director, you have to think like a producer as well if you're also going to be producing.
What is it about film that's so compelling to you? Like, what's sort of that magic that's of being in a darkened room and seeing something kind of unfold?
Yeah. You know, gosh, there's so many ways to start to answer that question. I think that the ability of film to go inside the mind of a character, even a drama, much of the time you feel like you're watching a character from the outside. Film has a unique ability to make you feel like you're inside that character and to increase your identification with that character to a huge degree, and to share in that story, and I think for that reason it has the potential to really help you explore things in yourself and understand yourself, not only to understand others, but through that to understand yourself. And different art forms do that in different ways, and I'm not saying that film is a higher degree of art, certainly, than theater or music or anything else like that. But there is that internal aspect of it, along with the sensory overload part of it. There is certainly there's no art form that is as immersive as the cinema. Certainly not music, because you can put music into the film. Certainly not photography, because photography is in the film. The performances of the theater, the performances are on the film. It's such a bucket for so many other art forms, and there's nothing else that really sweeps you up quite in the way that it does. It's a very strong instrument, and it is to be wielded carefully, and with great power comes great responsibility, to quote Uncle Ben.
Awesome.
And it's just a really important thing that filmmakers do, and people like Rick really enlarge our idea of the possibilities of what can be done.